Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for September 14th of 2023, and currently we have a marginal threat for the southern United States for Texas that does extend into the coast into western Texas as well as eastern New Mexico. Opposed from the last 2 days, we only have one region of severe thunderstorms to cover, so today's video might be a little bit short compared to the last two videos. But hopefully it will still give you the needed information for today's severe weather event. If we take a look at our threats, we do have a 2% tornado threat for more the coastal side of that marginal threat. But then if we take a look at our wind threat, we do have a 5% wind threat. But then if we take a look at our hail threat, we do have a 5% hail threat. More so back towards the western side of that marginal threat, where we could see a little bit more elongated photographs as the lower winds are going to be blocked by the mountains to the west, which will lead to a little bit more elongated photographs further west. Taking a look at the tropics, primarily focusing on Hurricane Lee, does look like that trough is going to be moving a little bit more to the north than what was originally thought. However, Hurricane Lee is still going to impact as more of a low-end Cat 1 to a tropical storm, but it does look like it has had a little bit more of a eastward shift. But we could definitely see some of the outer bands impact the New England region. We also already have some warnings out. We have, I think, hurricane watches. We have hurricane watches in the weird bright red or the pastille red, or whatever you want to call it. And we also have tropical storm watches, but then we also have tropical storm warnings for the coast of Massachusetts and Cape Cod. I think that's what that is. So we definitely have warnings out for Hurricane Lee because it is a very large storm. As you can see, it is fairly large, and some of the outer bands will definitely lead to the main threat of flash flooding, as well as maybe some higher tides and maybe some storm surge as well as the possibility of overall the main threat of flash flooding and very heavy rain across this region. Even though it has had a little bit more of an eastward shift, we could definitely still see some indirect impacts from Hurricane Lee. Taking a look at our radar Omega model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, focusing on the marginal threat for the southern United States. You can see that we do have the subtropical jet that is continuing to stall across the southern United States. We are expected to see rounds of severe thunderstorms across just to the east of the mountains, but not in the mountainous regions, but just a little bit to the east of the mountains because of the jet stream and subtropical jet that is stalled across this region. The subtropical jet and the mountains is going to work together to create a little bit of a low pressure system just to the east of the mountains, and will allow for an area of lift just to the east of the mountains. So that's why we are seeing severe thunderstorms across the eastern, just to the east of the mountains instead of anywhere else that the subtropical jet is impacting. It's because of the lee troughing from these mountains. But as for our directional shear and our 2% tornado threat, I know it's kind of hard to see without our wind vectors. However, we do have a little bit of veering of the winds. It is very weak and it is very, very subtle. However, it will give us our directional shear that we need to support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this region. But then we should also see some elongated photographs as the mountains do tend to block a lot of the lower level winds, but allow for the mid-level and upper level winds to get across, which will lead to elongated photographs to support the possibility of small to medium hail across this region. However, because the mid-level flow is very, very weak, we shouldn't see the possibility of large hail, only the weak threat for small to medium hail, as well as the threat for damaging winds. Taking a look at our dew points, focusing on the marginal threat for Texas, you can see that we do have some fairly strong dew points across this region with the rounds of severe thunderstorms that we have had across Texas and New Mexico, as well as a little bit of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. We could see a little bit of moisture building up across Texas, which could lead to some instability across this region. However, we aren't expected to see the amount of instability that would typically be possible with dew points like this. With the rounds of severe thunderstorms that I mentioned across this region, we are expected to see a little bit less instability than what would typically be possible with these dew points. We are going to see Cape values are going to range anywhere from the triple digits into possibly the 2000s range and the mid 2000s. Because of the rounds of severe thunderstorms that we've had across this region, those storms have been using up a lot of the instability, and atmosphere and introducing cloud cover, which is going to lead to overall weaker instability across this region than what would typically be possible with the dew points that we have. Taking a look at our temperatures, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong heat across this region. However, compared to earlier in the year, we've had temperatures that we're going to get as high as a widespread hundreds and above into the 110s and getting close to 120s. However, because of the rounds of severe thunderstorms that we've had across this region, that has decreased a lot of the heat that we've seen across this region, and fall is on its way. But you can see that we do have a little bit of a boundary here between temperatures that are going to be in the 70s and 80s and temperatures that are going to be in the 90s. So we do have that boundary there, and that is going to help trigger severe thunderstorms across this region. However, with our temperature gradient, we could see the possibility of some damaging winds. However, overall, this is going to help with instability, but it shouldn't help too much because of the rounds of severe thunderstorms that we've had across this region, using up the vast majority of the instability. Taking a look at our Cape, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong instability across this region. We are expected to see Cape values that are going to range anywhere from the triple digits into the 1000s and getting into the 2000s, possibly getting into the mid 2000s. However, overall, this instability is fairly weak. It is fairly moderate. It isn't very weak. It's more moderate. But this will definitely support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes with whatever directional shear we have. However, our directional shear is fairly questionable. Very questionable because the veering of the winds is very hard to see, and the mid-level flow is fairly zonal but also very weak. So our directional shear is going to be very questionable across this region, and could support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes with this instability. And we could also see the main threats of damaging winds with this instability and the possibility of small to medium hail as well. Taking a look at our energy helicity index, it does look like the directional shear overall is going to be enough to support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes. As you can see across that 2% tornado threat area, we do have some energy helicity index ratings that would support that 2% tornado threat. However, what could be helping influence our directional shear could be the rounds of convection that we've had across this region, as storms do leave a little bit of directional shear in their wake, which could be helping with our directional shear to support 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this region. But again, with some of the very weak veering of the winds, as well as some of the directional shear left over from convection in the last couple of days, we could definitely see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across the more the coastal side of this marginal threat. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. I figured out that the link for the Discord wasn't working for the longest time. I think that's now fixed, so join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.